From the underground bunker at Area 51, now known as the DJC Collectibles Studio, I'm Midwest professional wrestling legend Gage Octane. And now, a guy who has more conspiracies than Jesse Ventura, Kyle Peterson.
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, back again with episode number 10. Yes, episode number 10 of the Kyle Peterson Show. And as usual, got my beautiful co-host, Angie. Angie, say hello.
Hello. I'm still here. I haven't retired yet.
She hasn't retired. She's thinking about it. It runs in our family, I guess. My dad retires. Angie retires. No, Angie hasn't retired yet. My dad fully retired, but I was thinking we need to get my dad on here. Since he refuses to be a guest, I'll just call him on the phone. And I'll just talk to him on the phone. That's a way to go. So one of these days we'll have a question for my dad and we'll reach out via phone call. I guess what we'll have to do. We'll
just
force
him on here.
Force him on. Audio conference him in is what we're doing. So maybe we'll do that. But it is episode number 10. Can you believe it, Angie? We made it to 10 episodes.
We did. We're old pros.
Old pros at this point. On the road to 100. Can we make it? We'll see what ends up happening there. But of course, Angie, we got to thank a sponsor of this podcast. It is DJC Collectibles. Use discount code 8OFFDJC to save 8% off your entire order. And thank you to them for sponsoring this podcast. And if you want to sponsor the podcast, hit me up or Angie. We'll let you. The Kyle Peterson Show at gmail.com. So there's a little housekeeping right there. I should say, too, I don't know if you guys have heard about this. It's a brand new book, Angie. And you know why I got to plug it, right?
I do.
Why do I got to plug it?
No one else will.
Because no one else will. So somebody's got to step up and do it. But Jeff Manalia, who won this book last week in our giveaway, he plugged it on his show. So nice. People are plugging it, I guess, out there, but very few. So I got to take the reins, of course, as the author of the book. Of course, a beautiful book, as we all do know. Forward by Brian Myers, of course. It is the complete guide to the ECW original San Francisco toy makers, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or via me. I can autograph it if you want. It does come with a bookmark and a Kyle Peterson Show sticker as well. And even Angie will sign it. Angie signed a book this week, didn't she, Angie?
Yes.
Didn't
she?
She signed it with love, for
and mine's
sure.
legible.
And hers is legible, yeah. Mine's chicken scratch. I don't know. I can't write very well. But that is the book, of course. So a lot going on, as usual. And Angie, it's last week was our Memorial Day episode.
Yes.
And, of course, that's usually the kickoff of summer. But it feels like we're really about the kickoff of summer around here because the kids are out of school as we're filming this. Tomorrow's the last day of school. So I can imagine it'll be all-nighters of K-pop dance parties all summer long. The kids will wake up around 11 or 12 or so.
They got a plan to get fit.
Yeah,
they got a workout plan.
Really?
They got a list of shows.
Really?
And they're going to become volleyball professionals.
Are they? Are they? This is all news to me. This is breaking news.
We saw them playing volleyball out last night, and we were so shocked.
They were watching.
Our kids are outside.
They were watching some Korean anime show, and the kids were playing volleyball. And they paused it, of course, and then went outside and played volleyball for about 4 minutes, and then came back in and finished their show. But they got the urge for some volleyball.
Our
apparently,
hearts,
I said, "What? They're outside? I can't believe this."
Our hearts. We couldn't believe it.
It's wild. If you guys remember last week's story, where I talked about my buddy and I going to get the TurboGrafx 16 at the mall, going to the Farmore, basically walking miles and miles away from home. It was crazy. I did the math this week, and when I did do that, I was 9 years old. 9 years old. No cell phones, no nothing. I can't even imagine Elle, who just recently turned 14, leaving the house by herself.
We were actually just in that route and kind of ran the route, and we were like, wow, it was a long.
It was a long route, and your parents didn't care. They could care less. They're at work. It's summertime or whatever, but just crazy enough to get up at 8 a.m. and walk. I mean, it was at least a 2-hour walk to the mall, to get the TurboGrafx 16, carrying around the suitcase, all this stuff, then walking even farther away to this Farmore to buy basketball cards and stuff.
You messed up, too. You should have gone Farmore first, then the mall.
No, I don't know. Who knows?
Because you had the system. You had to walk all the way to Farmore and then back.
But just thinking of all that, and I was a year younger than our youngest daughter, Emma, and I cannot imagine her even contemplating having a chance to do that. She could never figure that out. Just absolutely wild. And it really proves the point that 9-year-old Kyle's smarter than modern day kids, but probably smarter than modern day high schoolers at this point.
I think we all were.
But just wild. And then just, parading around the mall and waving all this cash and having a pocket full of cash. Just a wild time for sure last week on that. But we'll see what happens to these kids this summer. In great news for me, of course, a pizza connoisseur. One of these days we'll do a deeper dive about pizza maybe on the channel. As some circles I am known as the Iowa Pizza King, so shout out right there. But there is a pizza restaurant that just opened around the corner from us within walking distance. What would you say? A good 10-minute walk?
Yep. 15-minute
walk tops, depending how fast you are. Depends if you cut through, too. It's over by the park. But there was a Subway that closed down. I'll pour one out for Subway, I guess. They just weren't eating fresh enough over there, apparently. Still the fallout from the Jared Fogle debate and all that, I bet. I'm sure that's what happened.
Forgot about him.
The new pizza place opened up in there, and it used to be a place where you'd only order online and you pick up your order. It was really crazy. Well, now they have seating in there. It's going to be a traditional pizza place. But at lunchtime, they have $5 slices. You get a drink and a big old slice. That's like every kid's dream. If I was 9 years old, I'd be walking up there every single day. I'd be collecting pop cans, trying to find money to go purchase this. But I told the kids, that's a perfect thing for you guys to do. You walk up to the park, you play, you go get a slice of pizza. We'll see if they can conquer that challenge this summer. But man, these kids are soft these days. Oh, could you drive me there? Could you pay? Could you order my pizza for me? It's like, come on, take some initiative. So we'll see what happens this summer. It's going to be the summer of initiatives. And now that Elle, she's ready to get her permit. So she's got to get her permit this summer too.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens.
It's gonna be we're going to be all gray by the time.
So we'll see how it all goes there. But besides that, the kickoff to summer, of course, filming this, Des Moines Con is this weekend. So I'm going to the Des Moines Comic Con, just like San Diego Comic Con, but a little bit different. But Des Moines Con is this weekend. I will be a part of an action figure panel there. So maybe we'll try to get some recordings or some video of that on the channel or on here or something like that. And probably do a toy hunt video at Des Moines Con. They usually have some toy vendors. So we'll see what's happening over there. But besides that, there's really nothing going on. Of course, it was a very busy week last week, Memorial Day. For me and my day job, one of the busiest weeks of the year. Now I get a little bit of a lull, but I got some big meetings coming up this week and next week. And then we're going to Tosh, Daniel Tosh stand-up. We're going to that in June as well. So we'll probably have something out of that. So we'll see what happens with that. But besides that, I keep saying it, there's nothing else going on, Angie. There's nothing else going on. So
wrapped up the school year.
Angie's here. She's got your loungewear on here. Is this, what do you call this thing? A romper?
Yeah.
A romper? She's got her romper on. It's looking good. Looking extra comfy here today. She's lounging our way into summer. It's going to be the stress-free summer is what it's going to be. But Angie, now it's time.
Not with that 14-year-old driving.
Yeah, that's true. Well, she's not driving by herself.
Well,
she shouldn't be.
Saying. We got to drive with her.
I got to see it. She steals my company car. She's not allowed to drive the company car.
She would never.
No way. You're not allowed to do that.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, Angie, now it's time. It's time for a deeper dive. All right, it's time for a deeper dive where we dive into a question, a segment, something, and go a little bit deeper. And as we know, Angie always loves a little deeper. She says, get a little deeper for me. That's what she always says, right, Angie?
Yep.
Yep, she wants a little deeper dive. And Angie, you're in luck here today as it's something you're somewhat familiar with. A time or two in your life, you've been forced out on the hunt. Today, we're talking about toy hunting.
Okay.
You're familiar with toy hunting.
Yes.
But I do get a lot of questions on my YouTube channel, emails, whatever, social media. How about? I get a lot of questions. Kyle, how do you know when the stores are going to have stuff? How do you know what stores have what day? How do you know what days they get things in? Well, I'm going to give all my secrets away here today. And these secrets were harnessed over decades of action figure hunting. Going back to my childhood with my dad, of course, the OG toy hunter back in the day. Him and I tracking down all the starting lineups way back when, and a bunch of other things, wrestling figures, Marvel figures, you name it. But it's all about a game of patterns. And I'm going to give all the secrets to toy hunting success. And as we always say, your mileage may vary on these, of course. But here's my biggest secret in toy hunting. And the secret's going to be out here, Angie. It's going to be out. Everybody's going to have this. It's no longer going to be a secret. But sometimes, it's like the magician that shares his secrets, or that one Pro Wrestling Exposed show back in the day on like Fox, where they told all the magic. Well, I'm going to tell the magic right here today.
Oh, Lord. And
toy hunting is a game of knowing the patterns. First off, you got to figure out those patterns. How do you figure out the pattern? Well, maybe you got a Walmart and a Target that are fairly close to you. That's what I have. I have one. Basically, the Target's walking distance, and the Walmart's not too far away. Angie can confirm this, of course. You've been to both of them on multiple occasions. And Angie, feel free to give any advice along the way if you want to. But it's all about a game of finding out the patterns. Now, what you need to do if you're a new toy hunter, or maybe you already know this, maybe you're a seasoned professional at this point, but you got to figure out the pattern of your store. And the best way to do that is you go to your store every single day. If you got a Walmart by your house, you got a Target by your house, you go every single day to that store. You also go about the same time. So if you get off work at 5 o'clock, maybe you go at 5:30 every single day. Now, after about 2 weeks or so, maybe 3 weeks, you can usually find out a pattern. You'll say, okay, it looks like the toys come in every single Monday. That's what my Walmart is. Every single Monday, their toys get stocked and filled. So I always know Monday is a primo day to hit the stores to see if there is anything new. Obviously, depending, I guess I'll get to it in a little bit, but you find out that pattern that Monday is every day. Now, the one issue that I saw with COVID, and I think we've seen this, I know in my day-to-day work life, and obviously Walmart, Target, everybody else's work life is kamikaze employees. It is tough to get employees. There's a lot of employee changeover out there. Angie, you've seen this out of retail. There's a lot of comings and goings. There's always a lot of comings and not so many goings with you as well. There's a lot going on at retail. So the old days, being able to find the pattern, a lot harder than it used to be, because guess what? Joe Bob called in sick on Monday, so now the pallet got ran on Tuesday. But for the most part, just play along. It is finding out the patterns there, and that's what I've done. So like my Walmart, I know on Mondays. A good pattern and easy one to find out is NECA. That's one thing. So you look at your toy aisle, you look at your traditional aisle, go to Target at NECA. Traditionally, there's a NECA representative they pay that comes and fills the stuff. By finding those patterns, you can say, every Wednesday is when the NECA person comes. So I have about 5 Targets around me. I know the days the NECA person comes to those stores. So I know the patterns. I know when to go to try to find these new figures, be it from NECA, be it from Walmart or Target. So pattern. I can't stress it enough. Obviously, you can ask an employee, what day do you usually fill the toys? But I think we know what happens when you ask that employee there. What's a toy? What are you talking about? What toys are we talking about? It's just one of those runaround things. But knowing your patterns is so key. It's so key in life. It's like your multiplication tables. You got to know the patterns of 9, the patterns of 7. You got to learn all that kind of stuff.
Was it Thursdays that Target restocks the Pokemon cards?
Wednesday, I think it
Wednesday
is.
night.
Yeah, we were at Target. I think it was Wednesday. I don't know. I don't collect Pokemon. That's more your speed,
I couldn't believe the line.
Yeah, and there's always a line all the way around the corner. People waiting to get these cards. And I'm like, look at these nerds. Hey, Angie, where's the X-Men figures? That's what I said. No, but long line for those cards. But those people, they know the patterns. They know what time the company that fills the cards is coming in. So they're already taking the advice without knowing it. They're probably watching this channel.
If it's past 5 p.m., just forget about it.
Yeah, just forget about it. Just forget about it. And the nice thing is, when you're knowing what stores fill the shelves on each day, you can make your trips around. Okay, I'm going to go to this Walmart on this day, this Walmart this day, or maybe they all fill on the same day. Now, it is tough. Now, I live in a city here with like 9 Targets in my area and like 14 Walmarts in a very drivable area. So you could be watching this, listening to this and say, well, I live in a town with 1 Walmart. Well, you got the hand that you're dealt. It's a little tougher hand than
Go
some
make
others.
friends with somebody in the toy
Go
department.
make friends. And Angie, perfect segue. Look at her. I was going to say, besides that, in toy hunting, it's nice to have friends out there, local friends that know what's going on. Now, my best friend over here, her name is Angie. Angie is in a lot of stores as well. And Angie, you love going to Starbucks at Target, of course. They have some of the best Starbucks, is what I've heard, inside Targets. They just taste better than the standalone ones because you can get a nice romper.
Well, they're made with love, too.
And they're made with love, especially if they know you.
Yes.
And then, they'll give you a little extra squeezing that lemon in that drink or whatever. But Angie, of course, in these stores, hey, Angie, here's a picture. Go look and see if this is on the shelf. So it's nice to have a friend there. Of course, local legend, David C. Anderson. We're both collecting a lot of the same stuff, helping each other out. Of course, that old outlaw, Waylon Jennings. We all remember Waylon Jennings. He's a little bit farther north of me. You got to watch out up there as well. So you got to know some friends that collect around there that can help you out. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, maybe they collect Hot Wheels. I don't know any Hot Wheels people. I try not to gallivant around with Hot Wheels. But nothing against you, but something against you. But nothing against you. But
the better looking they are, the better.
Is that true?
Because if the stuff's in the back, somebody's going to go get it for me.
That is one thing, too. Oh, and Angie, she's so good looking. Oh, yeah, you just are flashing. You just pull that romper. You just start unbuttoning the shirt a little bit. Yeah, I've seen you do it. I've said, Angie, okay, I know this person. And I think a lot of us guys that action figure collect can relate. They look at us like the just scum of the earth. The scum of the earth.
They assume everybody's resellers. Like they get a lot of that. Yeah.
They assume, I think, that you're a reseller or you're living in your parents' basement or something like that. And first off, I wish I lived in my dad's basement. You should see my dad's basement. Oh, there's a pool table. There's a big cigar store Indian down there. There's action figure collections. There's a huge TV.
I'm like, I'm just a single mom getting this for her son.
Yeah. So Angie plays it up, and they'll help Angie out all day long. So I always send her. I don't do it because I've had it, and if you're a guy, you probably understand it as well. Yeah, we don't have that. Everything's on the floor. Yeah, it is. And Angie just comes in there and she just flashes a little. She puts this down.
I let my strap fall.
Yeah, she just puts this down a little bit. And it's like, it's my son's birthday. And I think you don't even say son. I think you're like, my nephew. And you take the wedding ring off. My nephew is after this. And they're like, oh, ma'am, why don't you come to the back room and help me search? That's what goes on.
Oh, my God.
But having a friend out there like David Anderson or my wife, Angie, of course, out there helping along, it is key to make friends. And like David and I, we collect a lot of the same stuff, but it's like, hey, we're going to find it for each other. And that's a key to finding it out. So you follow the patterns. And then, of course, you get a friend out there, a spouse, a significant other, a mom, a dad, whatever. My dad out there, he's always on the hunt. My dad loves to take the physical challenge. He goes out there on the hunt. These aren't so hard to find. I remember when Major Blood was hard to find. You remember the Major Blood days. Just play along. Play along. Major Blood Cobra Island was really hard to find. My dad said, this can't be so hard. And the first Target he went to, what did he do? He found a case of those. He said, I thought this was supposed to be tough. He goes, this isn't like Grant Fuhrer of 1997. That's a hard figure to find. This isn't this Major Blood. I was one and done. I went on my morning walk at the mall, picked it up, and I was good to go. And just rubs it in your face. But he's a legend of the figure hunting game. And a lot of this stuff, we found out patterns from him. As my dad and I, as a kid, every single Friday, we knew the truck was at Toys R Us. We would go right after he got off work, and I was sprinting in there. We also made friends with the employee because, Angie, you said there's a lot of resellers, a lot of scuzzy guys back then in the starting lineup game. Maybe they still are, I don't know. But they were, big, overweight, bearded guys. You're stereotypical. Yeah, it was just guys that, where the Toys R Us manager at our local Toys R Us, like, here's a father and his son. Two salt-of-the-earth guys here. My dad looking like Magnum PI back in the day. Just looked just like Magnum PI. The stash and everything. It looked like Magnum PI. And then here's this kid, like a very attractive, like all the ladies in there, they were like in their 30s and stuff. And they're like, man, this kid's 8 years old. But, oh boy, that's what they were like. I am sure. I'm fairly positive. But
I did think your dad looked like Tom Selleck when I first met you.
Yeah, he does. He looks like my dad looked like a mix of Tom Selleck and Don the Predator Fry in the 80s. A man's man if there ever was one, but 6'8", of course. But it was knowing that and making friends with that person there, knowing we were collecting there, and they would tip us off. They would let us know stuff. Now, I don't think that happens much anymore because there's no Toys R Us's, and I think the majority of Walmart managers, Target managers could care less. They're just filling a job. And that's one thing you got to remember is this is just a job for them. The other day, they were working in the auto parts section over there at Walmart. They got moved to toys today. So you can imagine how much they care. So it's always wild. But the patterns is key. Finding a friend is key. And having fun. Just having fun along the way. But that's what you got to do. And a lot of people kamikaze toy hunt. And when you do that, you can get lucky on those. Obviously, it's kamikaze. Every once in a while, you crash into that aircraft carrier with your plane and you destroy everybody. But other times, you get shot down or you go straight into the ocean. So kamikaze is dangerous. It can work from time to time. But if you know your patterns, you know your stores, you can be a lot more successful, which ends up leading to saving a lot of time and finding what you really want. The other one is, I should mention, Jay's Toys and Games, a local toy store around here. A lot easier. They're more into it. That's all they do is action figures and video games and things like that. They'll let you know, hey, our new stock comes every single Tuesday. So I know Tuesday nights and Tuesdays, Fridays, that's when they get their action figure orders in of new stuff. So, I have a relationship with them, so I can kind of figure that out. So that does help a lot as well. But if you have a local toy store, I know not everybody is as fortunate to have 3 locations around them like I do. But there is ways to get yourself a little bit ahead of the game. Now, one thing I'd watch out for, of course, is the eBays of the world. You don't want to overpay for stuff. And if you have a little bit of patience, everything that was hard will get easy eventually. Obviously, there'll be some things every once in a while that go up in price. But if you play a little of that long game, you will lay in the weeds a little bit. You'll save some money there. And hey, I saved $25 over here. I'm okay spending up an extra $5. I'm net 20. So there is some ways to do that. As we always do say, got to get a deal, Angie. You know how that goes. So a lot going on in the action figure game, a lot going on in the toy hunt. But the word of the week, like Pee-wee's Playhouse, is patterns. And I did make sure I said it 45 times in this segment. So I wrote that down and I just crossed it off. So that means we are done, Angie, with a deeper dive. Did we go deep enough for you?
Yes.
Are you fulfilled?
Lots of patterns.
Are you fulfilled?
Patterns.
Oh, you just blew the...
Patterns.
That's not the only thing you blew out of the water right here. So there it is, toy hunting. Feel free, if you're watching the video version, put your best examples of toy hunting.
Your patterns.
What are your patterns? There you go. But now, Angie, it's time for the next segment. It's time for Figure of the Week. All right, Angie, it's time for Action Figure of the Week, or maybe Statue of the Week this week. But this week, of course, and every single week, we dive into one figure from my collection and we give it the honor of the Action Figure of the Week. And one of these weeks, we're going to let Angie do her show. She's going to cover all the segments. It's going to be amazing. And I'm going to sit in this chair. It's going to be a good time, Angie. Think you're up for it?
My birthday's coming up. Maybe we should do it.
Her birthday's coming up here, and I said, hey, let's talk about your 21st birthday. And she said, I don't remember my 20th. She has no memory.
No recollection.
I remember every single detail of my entire life, day by day. I'm like Rain Man. I can tell you about every single day of my life where Angie's like, I don't know. Unless it happened in the last couple of months, I don't remember it. We were talking the other day. I said, do you remember when you had the L? And she said, which one's L? And that you think she remember any of it? No, she doesn't. But Angie is here, and Angie, you're going to enjoy this one. I'm sure you are. But it is time for Figure of the Week, but it's going to be Statue of the Week this week. And this does come from the line called Knuckle Bones. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. We'll get into it here. But it is a beautiful Lemmy Kilmister statue. Motorhead's leader, the iconic Lemmy, here in Knuckle Bones statue format. You know, you're about a 7-inch scale statue here with a beautiful, beautiful base. There's only 1,000 of these ever made. And Angie, what number did mine?
252.
252. I said, Angie, I'm going to tell you something. This is all you got to remember for the next segment. And she did it. You are
I'm a
amazing.
numbers girl.
She couldn't remember her daughter being born, but she could remember 252, let me tell you. But this Lemmy is absolutely amazing. And the reason I brought this out is there's been a lot of turmoil in the Super 7 landscape. And Angie, do you know what Super 7 is? Mm-hmm. You do? What is it?
Yes, a toy company.
A toy company. Well, good for her. Angie's learning. It's all through osmosis. So she's figuring out some of this stuff here. But Super 7 has made quite a few Lemmy figures. And you know me, I love them. But there's been some turmoil at Super 7 with a lot of layoffs and a lot of changes over there. So I'm a little bit nervous for the Lemmy future over there. I guess we'll see what happens without my boy Kyle, of course. And as Kyle always says, and he's right, he always says, I've never met another Kyle I haven't liked. And I'm in the same boat with that Kyle. Club. And I'll see Kyle at San Diego Comic-Con. So he has been the driving force around a lot of these Lemmys. So I'm a little nervous about future Lemmy Super 7 figures. Going to keep my fingers crossed for that. But I collect any and all things Lemmy that I can get my hands on. We're looking at a lot. We're looking at a lot in this area. And this Lemmy is an absolute favorite of mine. Like I said, number 252, right? Mm-hmm. Of 1,000 on this. And these do shoot up in value pretty good. Check out the Knuckle Bones. If you like to collect heavy metal statues and things like that, there's a lot of good stuff. Now, I did have Slayer at one time in my collection. I actually sold them. I could not resist what they were going for. I think they were $150 each. I think this Lemmy was about $100 when it came out. I'm sure it's a lot more expensive now. But I think the Slayer ones were actually, I think they were all around $100 when I bought a bunch of them. And I ended up selling each of the Slayer ones for like $500 each. So I was like, for that kind of money, I can't turn it away. And I think that was when Emma was being born. And I thought about, I'm going to have a lot of diapers to pay for soon. So
and that medical bill.
Oh, and the medical bills. Yeah, and that kind of stuff. So a lot of the stuff goes up in value. Same things. I had all the Ronnie James Dio statues. Those went sky high. I said, I'm going to sell those. So I do still have some in my collection. I do have the Judas Priest set there, of course, the 3 of them. And then I do have all 3 versions of Lemmy. So there's 3 different versions. This, of course, later day Lemmy. And it's crazy how many people in this day and age, this is what they picture when they think of Lemmy. I guess I can't fault them for that. But this is cowboy hat Lemmy, I guess. Western wear Lemmy as well a little bit here. but absolutely phenomenal for these kind of things. And I wish there would be more of these in the future, and I wouldn't be shocked if there isn't. But a very, very fun statue. Now, I'm not a huge statue guy. I know there's some people that collect statues. I'm more of an action figure person, but I do break the mold for things like Lemmy, for things like Motorhead, for things like heavy metal. Iron Maiden, of course, another big one. But this one is a crown jewel piece. It is displayed in my office where I work all day, every single day. I look up and I look at Lemmy, the other statues. I bop him. I usually kiss my finger and I give him one of those and I just put him right on there. But an absolute fabulous one. If you've never checked out the knuckle bones, you might want to look at. They really fly under the radar. There's not a lot of people that talk about them. I don't see a whole lot, but there's a lot of cool stuff over there. And when they're sold out, they are sold out. So make sure you get after it. You can find some stuff on eBay like anything else. But this is going to be the statue of the week this week is the old Lemmy Motorhead. One of 1,000, mine 252. So there it is. That's the figure of the week. But now it's time for Angie to shine. How about to sign to Angie to prove us that she can do sign language? No, it's Angie's time to shine. Angie, it's time to try new foods because they may taste good.
You can try a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. We gotta try new food because they might taste good.
All right, Angie, it's time for your segment. It's time for you to shine. And what are you smiling about? You gonna sign?
Every time you start, you're so like animated. It like gives me a little jump.
Well, you gotta be hyped. You know, if you stay hyped, you don't have to get hyped. And that's what I'm doing.
I always say that one comment, didn't the woman say, or a guy commented that his wife doesn't like your voice?
Oh, that was terrible. A monster, of course, keeping me amped here today. But yeah, somebody commented that, Kyle, I watch your channel, but my wife hates your voice or something like that. And I said, well, I hate her voice too, and I hate her. So
it startles me. I like your voice, but it startles me.
Yeah, that's why you listen to my voice at ASMR at night.
You
like gotta start out. You gotta be it's the old radio stuff. I take all that. One of these days we're gonna do a story time with Kyle, but this time I should mention in this very episode here, we're telling one of the all-time stories. So stay tuned for that in a little bit. But we'll get to that later here. But Angie, it's time for you to shine. It's time for, of course, it's time to try new foods because it might taste good. And Angie's got 2 things for us to try this week.
More savory. I'm ready for a sweet.
She's ready for a sweet.
But I keep finding new stuff that's savory.
You like salty. I know you.
We got some Lay's. We got bacon grilled cheese. And these are like a traditional chip. Bacon, what do you call that? And then Korean style fried chicken. And then these are like a ripple.
Okay, Korean style fried chicken. That's an interesting one because just the other day we went to a Korean restaurant. Or what was it? It was like a Korean fried chicken restaurant. We got the kids to try those out. And the kids, of course, have turned Korean over the last month or so. With all the K-pop.
They loved it. They play K-pop on the TV and over the internet.
They were playing K-pop in there. They were just all in on this place. But Emma was like a little bit mean to me. She was a little bit sassy, a little bit rude in there because I was like, do you love this K-pop? What is this band? She's like, quiet. And she was like, you're going to, she thought I was going to offend the people there or something by asking like, what kind of K-pop is this and what's playing on the screen? And then I let her in on the secret that, hey, Emma, guess what? There's no Koreans here. There's nobody of Korean descent in this whole restaurant. Not even the employees are Korean descent. And she's all worked up that we're going to offend the Koreans by asking what K-pop band this is. And that guy over there, he's whiter than I am. So I don't know. I think the guy was albino, I believe, behind the counter. And the guy behind the counter, he talks so softly. Like, it was driving me up. So I'm like, this is the guy you don't have at the counter because he was like whispering. And I'm like, what?
I know. And I was like, what's the most popular flavor? And he was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just work here.
Like, he must have been new.
It was weird. Yeah, it was really strange. And then he's like, drink? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, okay. I don't know.
Literally, it's going to be Elle when she's working. So
Terrible. But Angie, let's start it off. Let's try this off. Let's see what's going on. Korean first. We're going to Korea first thing.
Oh, it smells really good.
Will we go to North or South Korea?
Look at this.
They got waves to them.
This is like one of the biggest chips I've ever seen.
I didn't smell it.
They're all big. Look at them.
You like them big. I know that firsthand.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It must be the small batch they make them a little better quality.
It's a ruffle.
They smell
is it a ruffle or a Lay's? It's a Lay's. Look at the front. Flip it around.
It's a ruffly chip.
I didn't know if it was
wavy. Yeah,
Ruffles.
It actually says wavy.
I didn't know if it actually was Ruffles, though, brand. It's like Ruffles. You ever heard of them? They're like a chip. You usually put them in chip dip and stuff. It's a Ruffles. Ruffles have ridges.
Yes, obviously.
Who am I talking to here? Anybody want to be a co-host?
All these smell like barbecue.
I don't smell anything.
Smell it in the bag, though. It smells just like a barbecue chip.
Gosh, I can't get a smell. I don't have the best sniffer though. All right, Angie, let's try this guy
Are
out
you going
here.
all the way in? Like, I feel like my spill's everywhere. Weird.
Definitely has a taste to it. It's always a positive.
It's weird. At the beginning, it tastes totally different than it does like a second later. I don't know what to think about it.
It tastes like a ruffle, so that's kind of the flavor consistency. It's got a little spice on the back end, just a hair of a spice, like some gochujang sauce or something.
I hate how
maybe.
I always think it tastes like something, but I can't pinpoint it.
Your palate's just not as refined as mine, of course. You know, I'm one class away from a minor in chef, I think is the case.
Yeah, it just reminds me of
Did you
that.
eat two?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try the second one too.
You know that Korean like marinade stuff that I put on the chicken sometimes when I make those little Korean bowls?
No.
Well, I might just make them for Elle, actually. I don't know.
Oh, of course. You don't make it for...
You like the bokchon sauce.
Poor dad doesn't get food made for
You
him.
like a different one. But yeah, they're good. I mean, it definitely has a Korean flavor. It's just not like strong.
Yeah, I would eat these. I don't have
Yeah.
any problem with them. There's chili oil or something on there.
Yeah, and it's got a little kick on the back end.
So what are you going out of 5?
2.5.
I'm going to go 3, so I guess I like it a little bit more. Not overpowering. Definitely worth a try.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
Now, bacon grilled cheese flavored with other natural flavors. Who knows what that could be?
Have you heard that you're supposed to open chips from the bottom? Should we
Never.
try it? Because they say all the flavor is in the bottom of the bag.
Makes sense. Lay's historically not a favorite of mine. I like a ruffle
I mean,
more
look
than
at
a
all
Lay.
that. They're not kidding. See? Look at all that.
Ew, look at
flavor.
all that bacon on or whatever that cheese.
The goop.
You know what Angie always says? Cheese me if you want to please
Oh, it
me.
smells really cheesy.
It does. That's like it's an overpowering waxy smell and feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. I like those. That's really good. This is like something you would actually eat, like with the as a side.
I don't.
Good. I mean, this tastes like a cheddar sour cream vibe.
I don't taste the bacon.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a little smoky at the end, but it kind of makes you feel like it's just like a smoky cheese flavor.
Doesn't really do a lot for me on this one. It does have a little cheese taste, but it's like a processed, not really good
Clearly,
cheese.
I like it. I did like 5 handfuls. Let me just do one more, just in case.
Just in case. How many calories are in these? I always forgot that too. 160 calories.
But yeah, open it from the bottom. Good.
Angie's little
My little
chip
trick.
hack. You're getting crumbs on my desk
I don't
here.
care.
I don't know on those. I definitely like the Ruffles Korean one way more. How about you?
Well,
Out of 5.
So my thing with that, it's like it's such a strong taste, and I don't rarely just snack on chips without having like
A
food
dip.
with it.
She wants a good thing of hummus.
So like if I'm gonna have like a burger or a hot dog, and like I would actually eat these on along with it without it being weird and like throwing off the flavor of the food.
Yeah, I didn't like those.
I did.
I mean,
I
I could
wish
eat
those
'em.
were like the Rippley ones though.
I like
'Cause
the Ruffles more.
I like the Ruffles more. Yeah.
All right, so what are you going out of 5?
3.
3 out of 5.
0.2.
3.2. I'm going 1.72 is what I'm going to go. No, I'm going to go.
I'm
going
going
to go.
252.
I'm going to go a high 1. A high 1. Not that good on those. And
Oh
I'm
my
not
gosh.
I'm not a Lay's consistency fan. I mean, maybe if you got some dip or something going on. I don't know. Man, not
Okay.
good. But the Korean one's way better for me. Way better for me. I'm going to go with
It's
those.
way more unique.
Yeah, and I'm a unique person. I like unique flavors. So,
That bacon grilled cheese just tastes like something you've had before.
yeah, didn't taste that good. But I think
But
there might be
it's
more
tastier.
chips available out of this thing. Or is there like another one?
God, what was it? It was like Venetia or something.
No.
Valentina?
I
Lime
don't know.
or something. It was a really weird name.
I
I
saw
didn't know
one
what
that
it
was like Doritos late night street tacos. I'd like to try those too. I love a good late night taco, of course, and a late night slice of pizza too. Probably not very good for you, but I'm all in. But
If you want a tummy ache.
yeah, everybody wants one of those, of course. So there it is, Angie. We tried new foods because it might taste good, but now we got to move over to it. We got a very somber
Oh no.
album of the week. All right, Angie, it's time for album of the week, but not necessarily an album this week. More of a tribute of the week is what we're going to say. And Angie, as usual, has no idea where I'm going with this one, but feel free to chime in. And I did ask Angie earlier today, I said, do you want to put some notes together for the podcast? No, I just like to just roll with the flow, and that's the easy way to do it. Angie gets her one job a week to find a new food, and that's enough. That's enough.
And I show up here.
And she shows up, and that's, and I always say, Kyle, how'd you get where you are? Well, one of the key things is just showing up, because that's half the battle right there, just showing up. So
and having a loving wife by your side.
Exactly. So, Angie, instead of the album of the week, it's a tribute this week, as a performer passed away this week. And I don't know if you're aware of this guy. His name, Rick Derringer. You know Rick Derringer?
I should.
No, I don't know. You'll know the songs when I talk about him here in a second, though. But Rick Derringer passed away at 77 this week. An unsung hero, and maybe more of a hero to me and probably the majority of the people checking out this podcast, as he is known in a lot of circles as the creator of maybe the greatest wrestling theme song of all time. Now, one of my least favorite wrestlers of all time, of course, but there's no denying this theme song. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. And I don't care if you like the Hulkster or not, it got you fired up. He is truly a real American. Rick Derringer was the songwriter of that, sang that song. You know I'm a real American, of course. Everybody knows that. And I would say right up there, if not surpassing it, another wrestling banger he put out back in the day was, of course, the theme song to Demolition. You know Demolition? Here comes the axe, here comes the smasher. We're Demolition. Walking to that. You know, I could sing this whole thing. But Demolition and the Hulkster right there alone in the pantheon of all-time greats right there after those two songs. But Rick Derringer worked with a ton of people. He did albums and songs with Kiss, Alice Cooper. He wrote a song. His first song he ever wrote was Hang On Sloopy.
Okay, yeah.
We all know that. That's a classic of your dad's radio back in the day, I'm sure. Yeah, he wrote that song, of course. And then, Angie, there's a band that I absolutely love. They have since broken up, unfortunately. It was a band called Gypsy Hawk.
Okay.
You remember Gypsy Hawk? Eric Harris and the boys, what are we doing? Let's get that band back together. If not, let's get Jakks going again, because, man, I love Eric Harris. Some boogie metal is what I always called it. I got that shirt that says boogie till you barf, and that's what I try to do every single day.
Iconic.
And I might, if I eat some more of those Lays, I might barf all over the table. We'll see what happens. But Gypsy Hawk did do a cover of, I would say, Rick Derringer's most famous song. Now, most people would think Rick Derringer's most famous song is probably the Real American Song, but his most popular song, he sang it, and also Mean Gene Okerlund covered it once upon a time, as did Gypsy Hawk. It is Rock and Roll Hoochie Koo. Oh. We all know that song, too. You love a little Hoochie Koo from time to time.
You like the Hoochie Koo.
I love it. It's one of my favorite things, of course, the Hoochie Koo. But Rock and Roll Hoochie Koo is another huge one for him. So Rick Derringer, a guy maybe not everybody knew, but everybody does know at the end of things.
Know.
And, of course, passed away at 77, unfortunately. And it's just wild to think of people passing away that way. It's weird because 77 doesn't seem old. And I think it's one of those things as you get older, it's like, it doesn't seem old because I'm 81 years old. We figured that out on my YouTube channel not too recently, that somebody thought I was 81 years old. And I'm just rolling with it. And I'm out kicking the coverage there. And of course, it's wild. I've surpassed my dad in age too. But, it's what happens sometimes if you live long enough.
Math ain't mathing on that.
No, it's not. But I'm right around there, of course. And remember, my birthday coming up here in a few weeks. Angie's is before mine, but we care about my birthday more, I think. Yes. I definitely care about my birthday. That's my one day to be the special individual in the world. I am. I feel like I have one day a year. It should be your special day. And don't get me started about my aunt and uncle getting married on my birthday. I'm still hot about that. That's my day. And, we have nieces now, of course, my sister's kids. And one was born in June, and she's trying to steal my thunder. They said we're having a birthday party for June, whatever, the 26th or something like that. It was that 28th. My birthday's on the 25th. Did you skip my birthday party and all this? What is going on?
Plan your own party.
I've still never...
You still think people should plan it for you?
Yes.
I'm too old for that.
I should be celebrated on my birthday. It's just the one day where I feel like I should be special. It's like, we're going to take Kyle to the store. He's going to get something. He's going to get a special lunch. Maybe it's a Wendy's or something. Cream. Yes. And then we're going to go out to dinner to Kyle's favorite restaurant. We're going to open some presents. It's got to be my day. It's got to be my day. But Angie doesn't care about her day. And her day, we're going to celebrate a little bit next week on Angie's birthday. So it's coming up very, very quick here. June 10th. Get your cards in the mail, of course.
Oh, my God.
But Angie will celebrate your birthday in style next week on the podcast. And maybe we'll try to figure a story time with Angie if she can remember one of her happiest birthday moment. We'll see if we can figure something out like that. But that's it, Angie. That is the album of the week this week. A very somber album of the week. But we're going to rise to the occasion. We're going to rise up like a young Paul Stanley in the 80s from Kiss. As it is time. I have said I'm going to tell this story one day. I've been threatening it for 5 years. It's a dangerous story, but it's time for Tales from Retail. All right, Angie, it's time. It's time for Tales from Retail, where I lament some stories of yesteryear, of my years in retail. And we've had a lot of all-timers here. This could be the all-timer video. Angie, you might want to settle in. You might want to get a pillow and a blanket. Feel free to take your dress off if you want to get extra cozy. We're here for it. She's all in there. Oh, she's ready to go. But this is a story I've threatened to tell for about 5 years. And the real ones, and I actually had somebody say, when are you going to tell that story just recently? And I figured a special episode, we're at episode number 10 of the podcast, I am going to tell this story here. Now, I'm going to try to dance around as best I can. I don't think I could be sued about this, but I think if I change the names of the innocent a little bit here,
I have no idea what story you're telling.
Angie has no idea, but I'm thinking this will probably resonate with you. I think you'll know this, and you'll be able to put the names together and everything, but don't say the real name. I'm going to try my hardest not to say the real name here, just in case. And if anybody wants to sue me, I just made this whole story up because
allegedly.
Allegedly. But this is an interesting one, and this is where I really had to grow a set of balls in more ways than one in this one. This is a very tough, and I have to think back what year this would have been. I'm trying to think. This had to have been 2010, I want to say. 2010. So put yourself back in 2010. What was going on that year?
I was pregnant with Elle.
That's right. So you almost, and unfortunately, this almost ended up with you being a widow.
Oh, God.
Yes, it's a very sad, scary story of this one here. But I'm going to tell it to the best of my ability here, so stay with it here. But this is back when I worked for the Mondelez Nabisco Craft Organization at one time, and I was coming up through the ranks. I started as a part-timer merchandiser, into a full-time merchandiser, into a swing rep, into a sales rep, into a regional merchandising supervisor, Target I was in charge of. There was a lot of different hats I wore at one time over there. Now, whenever you manage a team, and maybe a lot of you guys can relate, and you gals too, of course, and you gals feel free to take your clothes off just like Angie if you want to. No judgment zone here. But when you become a manager, you inherit a team, and I think I had about 85 employees. And one day we'll tell the story about when I left that organization, and about 65 of those people quit and put their 2-week notice in, and most of them headed to the new company with me. That's a true leader. When you follow your leader, that's true. Like a young Flint, not a young Duke for the real ones out there. But you inherit a team, and you inherit the good, you inherit the bad, of course. And unfortunately, this was one of the ones that were bad, and I had to weed out some bad people. And one thing I've always said, and I don't like to stand by it in my management of people, is sometimes a body is better than nobody. And I think that relates there, where you'd rather have somebody doing the work. Maybe they aren't the best, but in the meantime, you could try to find somebody to replace them. I always said it was a game of chess at all times, thinking ahead, who can I move in these pieces here? But you hate to lose somebody because you don't have anybody, and maybe I'd have to end up doing it or whatever. Anyways, long story short, this was one of those bad employees that had to go. And this guy started off really good, actually. He was part-time. He actually merchandised for me when I was a sales rep. I didn't have too many issues. He was a little bit crazy, a little bit zany, but, we all are at the end of the day a little bit there. He was a little bit over the top. Unfortunately, he took it to another level as he did get promoted to a full-time merchandiser from a part-time merchandiser. Hey, good for you moving up in the world, But for whatever reason, he became full-time, and it snapped in his head, and all of a sudden he knew more than all the sales reps out there.
Power trip.
It was weird, but he knew more than all the sales reps out there. Oh, I know him. This guy's doing it wrong. And I would have to sit down and calmly say, it's their route. Let them handle it. And guess what? If they make the decision on the route and it's bad, they'll get written up. They'll get fired for it. You don't need to worry about it. You need to worry about what you need to do. And what this guy really needed to worry about, unfortunately, was a bar of soap, unfortunately.
Oh,
and I've had a few times in my life, and that's got to be the hardest conversation to have with an employee is, hey, man, you got to shower. Hey, man, here's some soap. You go back to my young years when I became a manager for the first time at a grocery store. One time I gifted a guy a bar of soap. and said, here you go. That was a little bit more out there. Maybe I wouldn't recommend doing that, but I was young back then.
Yep.
But that was an easier conversation than this one. It was very tough to tell somebody, hey, you smell, hey, you got to take a shower. Now, I could look past that if it was just maybe me seeing it, but I had a lot of stores calling in and complaining that he smelled terrible. And unfortunately for me, like, I can't smell. So fortunately, that's a good thing most of the time. I mean, it's really tough for me to smell. This was one of the ones where you'd walk into the aisle and your eyes would start watering, unfortunately. It was that bad. And you've probably smelled a person like that a time or two.
Oh, yeah.
Not me.
Not you.
Oh, good.
You don't usually smell.
I smell good. I smell like candy is what you always say. It tastes just like it too, of course. But he smelled real bad, and you could never get the point across. And I don't know what the whole story there was, why there was no showering or cleaning. I don't know what was going on, but that was a constant struggle, unfortunately. So we would have talks about that, but he was smelling, obviously, and he was complaining to everybody. And now this guy also got very vocal about his hatred for women, unfortunately. Hated women, hated them with a passion. Like, I hate women. All women are gold digger. All women are terrible. And unfortunately, I think he really struggled in the dating world. He was an older gentleman. I don't know, older. He was about my age at the time. So, yeah. So he struggled in the dating life. And I think he was trying to get on these, dating sites and stuff. Couldn't get anywhere, didn't get anywhere. So he was obviously all pent up. So we had to keep you away from the aisles and stuff. We didn't want him just blowing everywhere.
I'm sure the not showering had nothing to do with it.
No, I know. But he was very loud too. He would get very loud and talking, very hated for women and all those kind of issues there. So that was a big deal with him. He was also a gambler. He also really loved sports cards, which I'm not against sports cards at all. But man, he was very out and proud to everybody. You don't put money in your 401k, put it in sports cards, And this was kind of the dying days of sports cards. This wasn't the boom of the 80s and 90s. This was kind of the dull days, but now they're booming again. So he's probably on a beach somewhere in Jamaica with all of his winnings. Who knows what he's up to now?
With a lady friend.
Yeah, maybe. But he was just always about that. And everybody would be like, can you tell him to stop talking to us about sport cards and stuff? And I got along fairly well with this individual. I didn't really have two problems. I could bring him back to earth a little bit. And he was always really nice to me.
It's because you couldn't smell him.
I guess. But he also was gambling real big. Now, this was when UFC was still not what UFC is right now. And back in the day, I could pick every single UFC. I could easily do it. I knew who the winners every time. I go, here's who's going to win this. Here's who's going to win that. And he was just getting into UFC and he'd ask my advice, and he was a gambler. So he would win all this money every week off my stuff. And then every once in a while I'd say, hey, here's $50. Thanks for that tip, which was always nice too. I always appreciated that. So it was really good, but he gambled. The sports cards thing, unfortunately, smelled, and then he hated women. And that was a pretty powerful thing. He also used to work for a local grocery store where apparently they bullied him pretty hardly there. And obviously bullying's a big deal, as we knew. We hear you got to be a star, and we hear about bullying at school all the time and all that. And I was never bullied. Were you ever bullied? I was never bullied in my whole life, because you know what? A lot of people get bullied and they sit there and take it. I would fight back if somebody tried to bully me. I got in a lot of fights back in the day. I have been in tons and tons of fights, but I'm not backing down from anybody. And I was always that way. And a lot of people always come to me for advice like, Kyle, how are you open about collecting? If you wear it on your sleeve, you don't have any problems, I think. But that's a story for another day. But he hated this grocery store. They bullied him and stuff. So we knew to kind of keep him out of some of these stores as far as merchandising did go. But he was just really getting more amped up all the time. It was a snowball effect. He was getting louder. He was getting more vocal. The hatred for women, arguing with things. And then all of a sudden one day, he came to me. Do you remember where this story's going? Do you remember any of this at all?
No, I have a very vague memory of this person, but I don't remember the story.
Well, we'll fill you in later. But
I'm scared.
he came one day to me, and he let me know that he had just figured out he had a very clairvoyant passage here, like a young Iron Maiden. And God was speaking to him. The Lord, God was speaking directly to him. And you've met a few people like this before, I think, which it's always interesting, because if God is speaking to you and you tell him, well, God told me this. So that is probably the hardest conversation you're going to. You think that bar of soap conversation's hard? It's very hard having a conversation with somebody that says, God told me this. And with Kyle, you're telling me this. Well, God told me. God's better than you. God knows more than you. So it's pretty hard to argue and win those arguments. So I would have a lot of stuff. Well, I know God said this, but you have to do it this way. And we were having performance issues, talk back issues. There was a lot of stuff bubbling. Things were going crazy. And it's tough when, God's telling him to do these things. He also came to the realization he was Alexander the Great reincarnated.
Oh my God.
Alexander the Great, once again, like the Iron Maiden song back in the day. And but he thought he was Alexander the Great reincarnated, and he had been put back in this time frame of Earth, of the world, whatever you want to call it, because he had to get to Drew Brees. Drew Brees, the football quarterback. I think he played for the Saints. Now, I'm not a big football guy, but Drew Brees, they're spirit animals, and he had to get to Drew Brees, and he'd been writing Drew Brees. I can only imagine what those notes look like, and emailing or whatever, getting a hold of Drew Brees. Obviously not getting very far with that. But God had told him to get a hold of Drew Brees, all this kind of stuff. And obviously he needed medication, I think is what needed to be happening here, and among other things. So it was a very delicate thing. Of course, being a manager, you got to be careful. You just got to dance around these things a little bit. And it was just getting very, very rough. And then one Saturday morning at like 8 a.m., I get a phone call, and it was his family. And they were all in a room, and they were having an intervention. And they brought me, and they brought me into this intervention on the phone. And I'm like, first I'm like, it's Saturday. Why am I in this? And what's going on? And what am I supposed to say? And they're all pleading with him that, they all knew he had mental stuff. And it's very difficult. Like when you tell me, Kyle, you're crazy. I'm like, she's crazy. She is the crazy one. I'm sure it was something like that was going on. And you just can't, what's the word I'm looking for? Resonate or rationalize.
Acceptance. There's no acceptance.
You just can't, you go back and forth with a person that just has God on their side, like, Bob Dylan back in the day. It's just almost impossible. So where do you go from there? And the family's pleading, all this kind of stuff. Well, what happened Monday? He didn't show up for work. So what the heck's going on? Tuesday didn't show up for work. What the heck's going on? I'm calling him, trying to get a hold of him. I just want to be able to plan. I think I did get a hold of him. He was taking a couple of days off. So we got his PTO in. He was taking a couple. No problem. We'll get you some days off. But then he never came back, and I couldn't get a hold of him. And I knew this was a ticking time bomb because he had been telling me he was wanting to go to schools. I want to go to schools and talk to these kids. And I'd say, you can't just walk up to the front door of a school, walk in there, and think they're going to hold an assembly and say, okay, sir, talk to the whole school. Like he wanted to talk to high schools and stuff. And I'm like, it just doesn't work that way. And he was from an area, and that's where he was, where my aunt, of course, my aunt, of course, salt of the earth, she was a school superintendent. And I gave her the heads up, hey, he's coming to your schools. He is trying to get there to talk. You just better be careful. So I told her all that, and he did try, and they turned him down, all this kind of stuff, and he was all worked up. Oh my gosh. So he's telling me all this, and I'm just like, you can't do this. Trust me, it just doesn't work. You got to do background checks. And if you're going to speak to a bunch of kids, they're going to want a whole, they're going to want something. They're not just going to let you with a live mic.
Or whatever.
Yeah, it's just doesn't happen. Believe me, I try to go to schools all the time and talk, and they don't want to hear what I say. I don't know, but he also had at this time where he was speeding up there to go to the school, he got stopped by the state patrol. And guess what? God got him out of the ticket. They let him go. He was speeding. And I'm like, they don't always give you a ticket. They say, hey, slow down, buddy. Be careful. But to him, it was God let him out of this ticket. So there was just no talking to this individual. It was very, very difficult. But I knew he was up to trouble with all this kind of stuff, and having him under our company umbrella, I knew it was going bad. And I'm trying to get a hold of him. Now he'd been a couple of days after PTO, had not shown up for work. What the heck's going on? Where is he? Whatever. Finally got a hold of him. His parents had been calling me, trying to find out, have you seen him? Have you talked to him? No, I haven't. All this kind of stuff. And then nowadays, my years later, I probably should have just said, I think after like 5 days, it's job abandonment. You're done. You're automatically terminated. You haven't came to work. It's automatic termination. It's good to go. You're done. But young, wild Kyle running fast and free, of course, back in the day. I can't believe you don't remember this stuff. Angie just can't remember anything, apparently. But we'll see if this part clicks, because this is the part that involves you in here in a little bit. I finally got a hold of him, and he was held up at a casino about 2.5 hours away. Do you remember this at all?
No.
Man. All right. So I was like, okay, I'm going to come find you. I'm going to this casino. I knew where it was, 2.5 hours away. But my brain said, Kyle, you got to get this guy off the books. You got to get him off the books. So I had a piece of paper there. I had it filled out. I went up, and he said, hey, I'm in this hotel room at this casino. So I haul all the way up there. I get to this casino. I get up the elevator, I go to the room. I'm standing in the hallway. This is where I called you. And you don't remember this. So I said, Angie, here it is. I am at this place. Here's where I am. Here is the room number. And I said, if I don't call or text you back in 5 minutes, please call the police. Please call the police.
See,
and that's
I
what
had
I
pregnancy brain. This is why.
Could be. That could be. But I did say, please call the police. So I wanted somebody to know where I was just in case.
I love that you were about ready to become a father for the first time. You're like, I'm going to risk it all for this.
I put my work ahead. I put my work ahead too often. But so I go to the hallway and he said, hey, this is the room number. Well, the room had the latch, so the door was open. So it was open. So I push it slowly, the door open. Complete darkness. There's not a light on in the place. And I walk in and I'm like, Jimmy Joe? We're using a fake name here, obviously. And there he was sitting on the bed all made, everything. He's just sitting there. And he's talking about, he just immediately goes into the Drew Brees stuff. I got to get a hold of Drew Brees. God has told me I need to get with him, all this kind of stuff. He was out there. And I was like, Jimmy Joe, you got a lot going on. I said, here's the deal. We need you at work, but obviously you have a lot going on, a lot of stuff you have to take care of. There's a lot of things you have to do. If you could sign this piece of paper that just says, hey, you're stopping your employment. So I got him to sign, I terminate my employment as of this day, blah, blah, blah. So I did get him to sign that right there. I said, you got a lot going on. And there's nothing I could do to help at this point. Like, there's nothing. You can't call him in because he says he's 100% right. And, it's you're against me, you're against God, all that. At that point, it's not for me to try to figure it out. It's for his family and stuff. And I have no idea if he ever got it figured out. I don't have any clue what happened there. I do remember, though, this is where it gets a little crazy. And I'm very, very fortunate that this happened. But I did get him to sign that. I immediately got that paper. I got out of there as quick as I possibly could. Texted you, said all was fine. Got back on the road again like a young Willie Nelson and got home and saw the birth of my daughter that day. I think that's how it went. I think it was that. I just got home just in time to see that. And that's a story for another day that involves Funyuns.
Oh, God.
Oh, we'll tell that story one of these days, too.
I remember that.
You remember that one, that's for sure. But I got him to sign this, and I immediately called HR and my boss on the way up, and they screamed and yelled at me that I was absolutely crazy because he could have had a gun, could have killed me, whatever. We weren't dealing with the guy who was fully there at the time, unfortunately. But I got him to resign and all this. And then literally 2 days later, I get a call from that grocery chain I mentioned earlier that he absolutely hated. He hated them with a passion. They bullied him, all this kind of stuff. Now, I wasn't there, but I tend to believe I could see how that could happen. I get a call from one of their vice presidents of that chain, and they said, do you know this Jimmy Joe? And I said, Jimmy Joe, Jimmy Joe. That name just doesn't ring a bell. Well, apparently he's one of your employees. No, I don't have an employee by that name. No. Oh, yeah. Nope, he doesn't work for us anymore. Hasn't worked for us for a while, which
for 48
maybe it was
hours.
48 hours. But this is exactly what I felt was going to happen. He apparently went into the store, laid down in front of the meat case, said he had a bomb. He was going to blow up the whole store, all this kind of stuff.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely lost his mind. And they called me. He's banned from all their stores, all this kind of stuff. He escaped out the back door before the police got there, so they had a police thing. I don't know if he got arrested. I don't know where it went, but that was the last time I had dealings with him. I just felt bad about the whole thing because he was a nice enough guy, but clearly had some issues. But I remember just getting reamed by my boss, and then I remember saying, hey, if Kyle wouldn't have done this, what the heck would have happened here? Because that would have been a bad look for a distributor that calls on this grocery chain.
If he was still on your payroll.
If he was still on the payroll, I can't imagine how that would have went. But, I'll never forget being on the phone, and gosh, I was just a young kid at the time. This president was like 50-something. I'm just like...
Good thing you had him date that paperwork.
Oh, I know. I signed it all, and he dated and everything. Jimmy Joe. This doesn't ring a bell for me. It just doesn't ring a bell. And it's funny is Tom is that manager, and I think he's retiring this year, and he's still over there, and I still see him every once in a while at grocer conventions and all that kind of stuff. And really nice guy, one of the nicest guys ever. But he hasn't brought that story up in a long time. Maybe on his way out. Hey, remember that time you called me about that?
For Jimmy Joe.
Oh my gosh! But that was a wild, scary thing. When you deal with mental illness, obviously, and Angie, you say I have mental illness all the time. I don't think you're right. I don't think you're right about that. But somebody did in the comments this week claimed I did have mental illness. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they did. They said,
That's not nice.
Yeah, it's not very nice, is it? I said, I'll get some medicine then, I guess. But we all got a little mental illness in our own way. But it was a rough thing. And it was a crazy, scary time because I'm really not scared. I'm more scared now that I have kids and stuff like that, because let's be honest, this whole family, this whole house will fall apart if I die tomorrow. It's just going to happen. We got to get things in place real quick here. But no, I felt like I was made of kryptonite steel, the man of steel back then, that there was untouching it, and I wasn't scared of anything. I'm still not really scared of anything, but I probably should have been a little bit smarter. I'm sure if I had to redo that whole scenario, I'd do it differently now than when I was young. It leads into many other stories of firings and things like that we'll get into with Story Time with Kyle, and of course Tales from Retail in the future. But this was a scary, scary one, and it is officially. I've told the Drew Brees story, and I've protected the names for the innocent out there on that one. So there it is. Angie, you remember that one a little bit?
Sort of.
A little bit.
Hopefully he's medicated at this point.
Hopefully all is well over there. So I tried to beat around the bush the best I could, just to protect the innocent. And I get enough threats of lawsuits over the years that I don't need another one. I don't need another one. But there it is, Angie. That is Tales from Retail. Now it's time for some final thoughts. All right, Angie, it's time to bring it home with some final thoughts, some final housekeeping as we finish up episode number 10 of the Kyle Peterson Show. What do you think about this week? Was it the best one yet?
We did it.
What do you think? If you had to rank all episodes 1 through 10, would this be number 1, number 10, number 5? What are you thinking?
It's just mid.
Mid, a number 5 out of 10. Yeah, it was. You know, it was a heartfelt story. It was some long stories. It was a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Somber.
A little somber, yeah. You know, maybe we'll do some research after this. Who knows?
Google.
Who knows what we'll do? But episode 10 in the can, I can't believe it. On our way to 100, marching towards 100, of course. But a lot going on this weekend with the Des Moines Con and stuff. A little slower this week, as we talked about at the beginning, but interesting times as usual here on the channel. And next week, you got to do some searching this week to find a new food as well, Angie. We got to find something.
Got to find something sweet.
I do have some alligator beef jerky, which could be a new food, so we could try that. And maybe we get some bugs. Maybe some bugs or something. Chocolate covered bugs.
That's crazy.
I want to put something really gross in your mouth. That's what I want to do. I want Angie to throw up on camera. Every day. That's exactly right. Every single day. But we'll see. We'll see what we can find. We got to find something good. And maybe we'll find a drink, too. That's one thing we haven't tried is new drinks out there. So maybe that's a possibility there. But there it is, Angie. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself in episode 10. Next week, we're going to do a special episode because it is little Angie's birthday here. So we're going to do some special stuff around there as we get prepared for the big shindig, which she says she doesn't want anything. But we'll talk about some of that maybe on next week's episode here. But of course, if you have any questions, this is usually where we do the reviews and the question of the week, but we didn't get any this week, Angie. I forgot to mention that. No questions for you.
People
no
are
reviews.
sick of us already.
They're sick of you. So we're done. No questions or anything like that this week.
We didn't expect them to stick around this long.
Yeah, of course. But if you got any questions, the KylePetersonShow@gmail.com. If you want those to be read next week, we can try to answer that. And of course, the 5-star reviews always help the channel. Spread the word on the podcast, of course, because somebody's got to say about it. Somebody is, and I'm doing my part. Are you doing yours? Who knows? But we'll see what happens next week with those ones there. Of course, don't forget DJC Collectibles. Of course, sponsor of this very podcast. And if you want to be a sponsor of the podcast, hit up the KylePetersonShow@gmail.com. Got to thank Jeff George for the music as usual. Midwest professional wrestling legend Gage Octane, who's going to sit in as guest host in July. That's going to be an all-timer of an episode where Angie's having the Philadelphia experiment, of course. Just, I don't know what you're going to be doing in Philadelphia.
They're not going to want me back after he's on.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah,
he's a professional.
It'll be good to have him, of course. He's a legend in a lot of ways. Of course, voiceover artist.
You guys are going to be yelling over each other.
It'll be fun.
You're both very animated.
Old Octane, he's out in Portland, Oregon right now. So he got some openings for the show. And it's funny, I bet you there's some people that they fast forward through the opening song. But Gage Octane does do a different announcement every single week where we think of some funny bits to throw in there. We've been working on it and we get a list together and he goes into the studio and records some stuff. We've heard him recently on a lottery commercial on TV. He gets around, that old Gage Octane. More on his story here in the next couple of weeks. And you never know who might swing in as a guest host. Trying hard for my dad because I think you're going to be gone 2 weeks, I think, technically. So we'll see what happens. If we can get somebody else on the show, we'll see. We'll see where that goes. So there it is for Angie for episode number 10 of the Kyle Peterson Show. We'll see you guys all real soon.
Well, are we going to dance or are we going to play?